During the Cold War, the CIA didn't just fight spies, they waged war on the human mind, using innocent citizens as literal lab rats. What happens when the protectors become the poisoners? The year is 1953. The Cold War is at its absolute freezing point. The United States and the Soviet Union are locked in a silent, terrifying stare-down. Paranoia is the national currency. The CIA is desperate. They believe the Soviets, the Chinese, and the North Koreans have unlocked the ultimate weapon. Not a bomb. A technique. Brainwashing. They look at American POWs making robotic confessions on enemy cameras and feel a creeping dread. If the enemy can control the mind, the United States must learn to control it first. And better. Thus, Project MKUltra is born. It is authorized by CIA Director Allen Dulles on April 13, 1953. This isn't a defensive program. It is an offensive weapon. The goal? Total control over human consciousness. The ability to extract the truth from an enemy spy, or program an assassin to kill without memory of the deed. But to test this weapon, they need subjects. Lab rats. And they don't look across the ocean for these test subjects. They look out their own windows. They look at the streets of America. The program operates in total darkness, shielded by the highest levels of national security. It spans over 80 institutions, hospitals, prisons, universities. The people running it are brilliant, calculating, and utterly devoid of ethical boundaries. They are the invisible men in the gray suits. They believe they are saving the free world. But in their quest to defeat a monster, they become something far worse. They turn the American public into an unwitting, non-consenting laboratory. They unleash chemical warfare on their own people. The question isn't just what they did in the shadows of the Cold War. The question is, who was the man willing to push the button? Enter Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. He is the head of the CIA's Technical Services staff. The poisoner-in-chief. Gottlieb is a paradox. He stutters. He lives on a farm. He drinks goat's milk. He studies Buddhism. Yet, he is the mastermind behind the most sadistic human experiments ever conducted on American soil. Gottlieb is tasked with finding the ultimate truth serum. The holy grail of mind control. He becomes obsessed with a newly synthesized compound from Switzerland, lysergic acid diethylamide. LSD. He believes LSD can shatter a human ego, strip away defenses, and rebuild a mind from the ground up. To Gottlieb, LSD isn't a drug. It's a scalpel. And he intends to use it to dissect the human psyche. He convinces the CIA to buy the entire global supply of LSD, essentially monopolizing the drug. But Gottlieb isn't content with testing on volunteers in sterile labs. That doesn't mimic the chaotic reality of espionage. He needs to know what happens when someone is dosed without warning. When their reality collapses without explanation. So, he begins testing on his own people. CIA colleagues. Government officials. Military personnel. He spikes their coffees. Their cocktails. Their water glasses. Without their knowledge. Without their consent. The results are terrifying. Grown men break down. Agents suffer psychotic breaks. Careers are ruined. minds are irrevocably shattered. But Gottlieb doesn't stop. He pushes further. He realizes that dosing trained agents isn't enough. He needs to test the drug on people who have no idea they are part of a secret war. He needs average, unsuspecting citizens. He needs subjects who cannot fight back. Where do you find a steady supply of disposable human beings to drug without consequence? To find his unsuspecting test subjects, Gottlieb turns to the underworld. Operation Midnight Climax is born. It is perhaps the most bizarre and perverse chapter of MKUltra. The CIA sets up safe houses in San Francisco and New York. They are decorated with French post-impressionist artwork. They look like ordinary, slightly sleazy apartments. But they are sophisticated traps. The CIA hires local sex workers. Their job: to lure unsuspecting men back to the safe houses. Businessmen, sailors, drifters, men looking for a fleeting moment of pleasure. But the drinks in these apartments are spiked, heavily dosed with LSD and other hallucinogens. Behind a two-way mirror, CIA operatives sit in the dark. They watch. They sip martinis. They take notes while the men in the other room hallucinate, panic, and spiral into chemically induced madness. They monitor the effects of the drugs combined with sexual arousal. The men cannot report the abuse. Who would they tell? They are caught in a compromising situation with a prostitute. The CIA relies on their shame to ensure their silence. It is a perfect, twisted ecosystem of exploitation. The operatives behind the glass are completely detached from the human suffering they are causing. They view the men not as human beings, but as data points. The safe houses operate for years. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of men are dosed. Their minds violated. Their realities fractured. Some never recover. Some end up in psychiatric wards. Some simply disappear. The CIA learns exactly what they wanted to know about covert dosing. But the collateral damage is immense. The hubris of the agency knows no bounds. They believe they are untouchable. But the dark reality of their reckless experiments is about to violently collide with one of their own. What happens when the poisoner accidentally poisons the wrong man? November 1953. A secluded CIA retreat in the mountains of Maryland. Deep Creek Lake. The men of the Special Operations Division are gathered for a working retreat. Among them is Dr. Frank Olson. He is a brilliant biochemist, a dedicated family man, a loyal government scientist. But Olson has been showing signs of ethical conflict. He has witnessed things that haunt him. Interrogations in Europe. Lethal bioweapons. The dark side of the Cold War. After dinner, Sidney Gottlieb decides to conduct an impromptu experiment. He slips a massive dose of LSD into the bottle of Cointreau the men are sharing. He does not tell them until 20 minutes later. Olson, already struggling with his conscience, is plunged into a terrifying, unmoored reality. He spirals into a deep, paranoid depression. The drug unlocks a profound existential terror. He cannot shake the feeling that he has done terrible things. He wants out of the CIA. He wants to confess. Gottlieb and his colleagues panic. An unstable, guilt-ridden scientist with top-secret knowledge is a massive liability. They send Olson to a psychiatrist in New York City, accompanied by a CIA minder. The psychiatrist is secretly tied to the CIA. They put Olson up in the Statler Hotel. Room 1018. On the night of November 28, 1953, Olson allegedly crashes through the closed window of his hotel room. He plunges 10 stories to the sidewalk below. The official story is a tragic suicide caused by nervous breakdown. The CIA covers up the LSD dosing. His family is told he fell or jumped. But the evidence doesn't add up. The window was closed. He would have had to run across the room and dive through thick glass in the dark. Years later, his body is exhumed. Forensics show blunt force trauma to the head before the fall. The terrifying truth emerges: Frank Olson wasn't just a casualty of a reckless experiment. He was a man who knew too much. If the CIA is willing to eliminate one of their own brilliant scientists, what are they willing to do to a total stranger? The darkness of MKUltra isn't confined to American soil. The CIA needs a place to conduct experiments too extreme, too brutal, to risk exposing in the United States. They find their perfect laboratory in Montreal, Canada. At the Allen Memorial Institute. Enter Dr. Ewan Cameron. He is a highly respected psychiatrist. The president of the American Psychiatric Association. But behind closed doors, he is a monster. Cameron is obsessed with de-patterning. The idea that you can completely wipe a human mind clean, like an old cassette tape, and then program a new personality into the blank space. The CIA secretly funnels money to Cameron through a front organization. They fund his atrocities. Cameron's patients are not spies. They are ordinary people. Housewives suffering from postpartum depression. Men with mild anxiety. Teenagers struggling to fit in. They go to Cameron seeking help. Instead, they are subjected to unimaginable torture. Cameron induces comas that last for months using massive doses of barbiturates. While the patients are comatose, he uses psychic driving. He places speakers under their pillows or headphones on their ears. He plays looped audio messages, hundreds of thousands of times. You are a bad mother. You are inadequate. He uses massive, brutal electroconvulsive therapy. Not to treat, but to destroy. He shocks them until they forget how to walk, how to talk, how to use a toilet. He reduces grown adults to a vegetative, infantile state. The families are told this is a groundbreaking new therapy. They are kept in the dark while their loved ones are dismantled piece by piece. The women who went in for mild depression emerge as shattered shells, stripped of their memories, their identities, their very humanity. The CIA watches with morbid fascination. They want to know if the mind can truly be erased. But while Cameron tortures Canadian housewives, the CIA targets another vulnerable population back home. Who is easier to abuse than a person already locked behind bars? To perfect their chemical weapons, the CIA needs subjects who cannot say no. Subjects who have been stripped of their rights. They turn to the American penal system, to prisons, to the marginalized, to drug addicts. In the eyes of the MKUltra architects, these people are expendable. They are the perfect raw material for the factory of madness. The CIA establishes testing programs in federal penitentiaries. They use a front called the Addiction Research Center. But it is not about curing addiction. It is about exploiting them. Prisoners are offered a chilling trade: time off their sentences, or access to high-grade heroin, in exchange for participating in medical trials. The prisoners, desperate and addicted, agree. They have no idea what they are signing up for. They are injected with experimental hallucinations, with paralyzing agents, with cocktails of drugs designed to induce terror, confusion, and submission. They are locked in isolation chambers. They are subjected to sensory deprivation. They hallucinate for days on end. If they complain, they are ignored. If they refuse, they lose their privileges. They are trapped in a nightmare within a nightmare. The CIA also targets the mentally ill. They conduct experiments in state asylums. They test drugs on patients who lack the capacity to consent. They see these human beings as nothing more than biological hardware, ready to be hacked. The cruelty is systemic. It is calculated. It is completely hidden from the public eye. The government is essentially running a chemical torture program on its own most vulnerable citizens. But the pinnacle of this institutional abuse takes place in a specific facility in the American South. A place where the dosing never seems to stop. How long can a human mind endure a relentless chemical assault before it permanently snaps? Lexington, Kentucky. The NIM Addiction Research Center. It is a federal facility for treating drug addicts. But under the shadow of MKUltra, it becomes a house of horrors. Dr. Harris Isbell is the man in charge. He is secretly funded by the CIA. Isbell has a captive audience of severe drug addicts. And he uses them with chilling efficiency. His goal is to test the limits of human endurance to LSD. To find out what happens when the drug is administered not just once, but continuously. 4 days. 4 weeks. 4 months. He recruits patients by offering them their drug of choice. Heroin. Morphine. In exchange, they must take his new, experimental medicine. The patients agree. They are desperate. They are then subjected to the most grueling hallucinogenic marathon in recorded history. In one infamous experiment, Isbell doses 7 patients with high-grade LSD for 77 consecutive days. 77 days. Let that sink in. 2.5 months of uninterrupted, chemically induced psychosis. The men are trapped in a waking nightmare. The walls breathe. The floors melt. The air screams. They lose all connection to reality. They suffer severe paranoia. Terrifying hallucinations. Complete ego death. They beg for it to stop. But Isbell continues to administer the drug, increasing the dosage as their tolerance builds. He coldly notes their reactions. The disintegration of their personalities. The profound terror. The absolute destruction of the human mind. The men are permanently damaged. Their brains are fundamentally altered by the relentless onslaught. The CIA gets their data. They confirm that long-term dosing destroys the psyche. It is a sterile, clinical observation of pure human agony. But empires built on secrets eventually crack. As the 1970s approach, the political climate shifts. The paranoia of the Cold War begins to give way to skepticism. The architects of MKUltra realize they are sitting on a mountain of damning evidence. What do you do when the paper trail leads directly to the most horrific crimes in modern American history? It is 1973. The Watergate scandal is engulfing Washington. The Nixon administration is crumbling. The era of unchecked executive power is facing a violent reckoning. The intelligence community is terrified. They know that if investigators start looking closely, they will find the skeletons. And MKUltra is the biggest, darkest skeleton in the closet. Richard Helms is now the director of the CIA. He knows the program is a liability. He knows that the records of Operation Midnight Climax, the torture of Dr. Cameron, the dosing of prisoners, and the death of Frank Olson are a ticking time bomb. The public would be outraged. The agency could be dismantled. Helms makes a calculated, desperate decision. He orders the complete destruction of all MKUltra files. Thousands upon thousands of documents. Memos, financial records, medical reports, operational diaries. They are gathered up and fed into the incinerators. The fire burns for days. The CIA attempts to erase the history of their own crimes. They try to wipe the slate clean, just like Dr. Cameron tried to wipe the minds of his patients. It is a massive, coordinated cover-up. The ashes of the paper trail float away, taking with them the names of the victims, the specific details of the experiments, and the full scope of the atrocity. The men who orchestrated the madness breathe a sigh of relief. They believe they have gotten away with it. They believe the truth has been permanently destroyed. Sidney Gottlieb retires to his farm, seemingly untouched by the horrors he unleashed. The darkness is safely locked away. Or so they think. Because in any massive bureaucracy, perfection is impossible. Someone, somewhere, makes a mistake. A filing error. A misplaced box. What happens when the fire misses a single, crucial thread? The year is 1975. The Church Committee is formed by the U.S. Senate to investigate intelligence abuses. The rumors of mind control experiments are swirling, but there is no hard proof. The CIA calmly testifies that all records were destroyed in 1973. It seems the investigation has hit a dead end. But then, a miraculous accident occurs. An archivist, digging through a forgotten storage facility outside of Washington, finds something. A cache of boxes that had been misfiled. They weren't in the main MKUltra files. They were stored under financial records. The financial annex. It contains roughly 20,000 documents. The fire missed them. These documents don't contain the medical files or the operational details. But they contain the receipts. They contain the names of the institutions, the dates, the grants, and the researchers who were paid. It is the skeletal outline of the monster. The documents are subpoenaed. The truth explodes into the public consciousness. In 1977, a massive Senate hearing is held. Admiral Stansfield Turner, the new CIA director, is forced to admit the existence of MKUltra. The public learns about the LSD experiments. The unwitting subjects. The safe houses. The media goes into a frenzy. It is a profound betrayal of public trust. The conspiracy theorists were right. The government really was experimenting on its citizens. Survivors begin to come forward. The families of the victims sue the government. The Canadian housewives. The prisoners. The family of Frank Olson. The CIA is forced to pay settlements, but they rarely admit legal liability. They claim the program was a product of its time, a necessary evil in the face of the Soviet threat. But the damage is done. The illusion of the benevolent government is shattered forever. The financial records proved the monster existed. But without the destroyed medical files, the true depth of the horror remains unknown. Which leaves us with the most terrifying question of all. We look back at MKUltra and shudder. We tell ourselves it was a dark chapter, a relic of Cold War hysteria. We comfort ourselves with the knowledge that the program was officially shut down, that the Senate investigated, that new rules were put in place. But the unease lingers. The 20,000 pages of financial documents were just a fraction of the total picture. They were the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of the evidence, the details of the most extreme experiments, the identities of the deepest victims, the final conclusions of the researchers, were burned by Richard Helms. We will never know the full truth. We will never know how many minds were broken. We will never know how many lives were destroyed in the name of national security. The men who ran the program, men like Sidney Gottlieb, never faced criminal charges. They died in their beds, taking their darkest secrets to the grave. The government settled the lawsuits quietly, using taxpayer money to pay for the crimes of the state. The technology of mind control has undoubtedly advanced since the 1950s. The pharmacological tools are more sophisticated. The psychological understanding is deeper. The desire for total control over the human mind is a temptation that absolute power rarely ignores. The official story is that MKUltra ended. But when an agency operates in complete secrecy, with billions of dollars in unacknowledged funds, and a history of treating citizens like disposable assets, trust is a dangerous luxury. Did they really stop the experiments? Or did they just learn how to hide them better?